So yeah, do something brave. Do something brave. And I even would tell my 8th graders and 4th graders when I was working with them, do one brave thing a year is what I would kind of phrase it as.
Hello, Mark. How are you today?
Doing pretty good.
Welcome to the Artists of Bakersfield. Thanks for coming today. We really appreciate it. Always like to ask, do you consider yourself an artist, number one?
Yes.
You do?
Yeah, that was something that I picked up along the way. So a little bit about me. My name is Mark Gonzales. I've been a video editor since I was a child, whether or not I knew it back then. I believe I started actually editing stuff when I was around like 7 years old. But fast forwarding a little bit, I graduated from the Art Institute of California, and one of the first things my instructors told us was, you're an artist. Just get that out of your head right now. Just say it. You are what you are. You're doing it, whether or not you've sold something, whether or not you've made money, whether or not you have an audience. It all begins with you. And so the sooner you're able to own it, you're able to process forward from that, you're in. And it doesn't, there's no gatekeepers, you know. To become an artist is to just simply say, I'm an artist. I was introduced to a bevy of professional filmmakers, cinematographers, directors, but probably the most influential. I got to work with Steve Gerbson. He was the lighting director and cinematographer for Friday the 13th Part 2, if I remember correctly. And has done a number of other projects. Ray Lovejoy had taught me editing. And then my top two most favorite teachers there were Misha Livingston. This was an Irish gentleman who was in the Israeli army and was very intense and was my very, very first film instructor. And I owe a lot to him. I loved Misha dearly, and you know, he was very strict and intense, but he challenged you. That's all it was. One of my favorite experiences with Misha was my first year in film school. One of the assignments was to go out and set up a shot, right? That was essentially it. That was the only direction. Go set up a shot. And I went on campus and I set up my camera and I had all this intention behind it, right? And I put a lot of thought into it. And Misha comes up behind me and I feel very proud of the shot. And I tell him, I explain to him everything that I did. And he looks at me and all he says is, why? And then he walks away. That was it. And I actually totally dismantled my shot. I did something entirely different, right? It just struck me. I don't know what I was expecting. I was expecting him to say, oh, good job. Oh, that sounds great. You know, that's a lot of thought put into it, blah, blah, blah. All he did was challenge me with a why. And then I totally folded and did something different. Then it came time to present our shots to the class. And he tells me, he goes, I liked your first shot better. And I was like, me too. And then you're just very point blank. He's like, so why'd you change it? And I was like, you know, you have to be challenged with yourself. And I was like, I changed it because you asked me why. And he's like, so why'd you do it? I just asked you why. And, you know, it's funny because I just explained it to him, and then he still asked why. All I had to do was keep defending myself, defending the idea. And that was, I think, my second or third class with the gentleman. It might have been class number 2. So he was really good. He was very good at altering and changing my mindset. And then one of my most favorite teachers was a gentleman by the name of Mark Moore. If I remember correctly, he was production coordinator for Michael Bay on a few projects. He's a cinematographer, and anything that I had ever done professionally was thanks to Mark Moore. He taught me everything I know about cameras, about lighting equipment, but he also got me working professionally. He was very, very great with his students. He would essentially just tell us things like, hey, you want to work this weekend? And we'd be like, yeah, of course. So, you know, he did really good job of recommending us to sets, to getting us working. There was something that both he and Misha would do or say a lot, which is just always be working. You know, every weekend, Monday through Friday was normally for school, and then the weekends were for working. So you would just find a project, always be working. That was just installed in my head and ingrained. And it meant everything. Like when I tended to talk to folks and do things, you can bring so many experiences because you just don't stop. And even on the weekends or even on the days when I wasn't working for somebody else, I'd be working on my computer. I'd be working on something for me. You know, so you're always working. You're always thinking, creating, and making. That was wonderful.
Wow. So Mike Moore sounds like somebody probably the most influential. Would you say he was the most influential person in your professional life?
Yeah. I would say between him and Misha, they're kind of head to head. Misha challenged my brain, and then Mark Moore, he taught me how to work. Essentially, he taught me the skills that I needed. You know, he taught me cinematography, camera, lighting, all that jazz. And not only that, but there's an aspect of creativity and mental fortitude that goes into that as well.
You've talked about like their work and how they've influenced you. Tell us more about your work and what you've accomplished.
So since graduating, even while I was in school, I always kind of thought of myself as a working professional, even in school. And that's essentially because that's how they taught us. They're like, you're working now. It's not that you graduate and all of a sudden, oh, here's your job. You're working now. And as you're working, you're learning. And that's really never going to stop. I started off as a grip, worked my way up to a gaffer, and it was mostly because I was working in the in a camera rental department. So I became very knowledgeable with camera gear, with filmmaking gear, and I was able to accurately pick out or recommend pieces of equipment that we would rent out to other folks. And then what I began working on for myself were several projects. I've always kind of been in search of something new to work on, something new to tackle. So I began making, first start off with just on the street interviews, did a few documentary things like that. I was able to make 2 shorts. The 2 shorts had a very short limited run in a theater in Santa Monica. And then after that, it was really just, as I was saying earlier, just kind of keeping working. I would always try to lend my abilities out to others. To create something whole cloth is still something that I do normally, and I find myself kind of picking up things and practicing a lot along the way, so that way when I'm asked to help out on others' projects, I can just bring a little bit more to the table. This then led me to working for Apple. So for the last 10 years, I got hired on externally as one of their creatives, which has been a very rewarding experience. What this allows me to do is teach others, again, those skills that I've been picking up along the way. So at Apple, to teach folks how to create videos, animations, music, all this stuff. I essentially get to take everything that I've learned and give it back, and all for free, which is pretty cool. It's been amazing. I have seen folks literally start out as beginners to then go on and create their own businesses or become professionals themselves, and that's very rewarding. One of my favorite stories was this really cool guy. His name's Ian. He came to me. I want to say he was about 17 years old, if not just kind of a little bit fresh out of high school. And when he came up to me, he essentially just said, I always wanted to be a filmmaker. I want to be a filmmaker. And I told him exactly what I said here, which is, cool, you're a filmmaker. You just say it, right? Congrats, you are a filmmaker. And then he kept coming in for some of my classes for about a year. And within that year of teaching him Final Cut Pro, teaching him all these different kind of programs and graphics and editing and all this stuff, after a year of coming into these sessions, he's now an editor at our local news station. which is super cool. And he's still working on his YouTube channel. It was I got to help him create his first like professional animated intro for another YouTuber, which was super cool. So yeah, what I would say I've been working on the most in the last like at least 6 years, 5-6 years, is actually trying to develop the talent of others, trying to share the things that I've learned and the gifts that I've been able to receive. How can I then give that back to folks? So yeah, something that I've been reflecting on during the 2020 pandemic is my work, is the things that I've done, and yeah, thinking back on the people that I've affected is definitely what I feel the most proud of. And I realize the thing that I want to continue working on and focusing on is people, is helping folks step over this hurdle that, you know, I can't do this, or it's impossible. It is now is the to become like a filmmaker, or to have your material be seen by others has become so easy. It becomes, or at least it's become so much. There again, the idea of there being a gatekeeper to becoming an artist or to people seeing your work now is the best time ever. You can go on YouTube, you can go on so many other channels, not just YouTube, and your work can be seen by others. Some of the other things I've worked on is honestly just little things throughout here and there too. Like I said, I'm always kind of working on stuff for myself, and I usually share it online for free with other people's. I just got an email right now from someone, I don't even know where they're from, and it was kind of nice. They just sent me an email that said, you know, like, I love your work, and this and that, and I was like, oh, cool. And I don't even know what they were talking about, and it was all it was just a little cursor that I made. Like, you can make custom cursors for your computer, and I was just teaching myself it because I was curious about it, and I made like a set of like 5 or 10 of these mouse cursors. And I released them on my DeviantArt page, and yeah, just like 5 years later, somebody sent me an email saying that they really loved it, and I was like, oh my god, I totally forgot about that. So yeah, just trying to spread it out there, you know, get people to be inspired, wanting to help dreamers become doers. Yeah.
Well, you're definitely an artist, but you are, I don't even know what to call it, but you're the person teaching them how to do their art. So you are definitely an engine, I guess, for lack of a better term, in helping people do that. I don't even know how to describe that, but that's great what you do, and thank you for what you do. There's almost no limit to what you can do. What have you not done in your time as an artist?
Yeah, there's a lot of frontiers, right, still to be tackled. Reflecting back on like what does it mean to be a successful artist? Or what is a success? Because I don't think you don't even have to worry about what a successful artist means. But I do. I think that as long as you can affect people and you can create real change, and you see people's work, even if it's not your own work that you are creating, but you know, you're causing the ripples. I like how you described it as an engine. I even thought about it sometimes as like, you know, it's almost like a producer kind of deal where, you know, you can create the thing you want to see, even if it's not your hands are the ones that are making it, you know. You could be the Nick Fury and gather the people that you need.
Yeah. The Professor X of artists.
Yeah. All right, now you guys go do the work.
So we're talking to the Professor X of the Artists of Bakersfield.
But it also made me reflect back on Mark more, because every time, again, he would always get me work. He would always say, hey, do you want to work? Hey, do you want to work? And so it's really cool to be able to do that now for others. That now I'm the one texting people, hey, I got a job. Hey, this is what I'm hearing. Do you think you could do this? So, being a resource to others has been really cool. And then, in terms of things that I haven't done yet, there are a lot of technologies that are coming out that need to get played with. One that I think is really, that has some potential to make some really cool stuff is like VR experience. Now, of course, a lot of folks are experiencing using gaming. I'm curious as to what we could do with augmented reality and virtual reality for things like animations, things like something a bit more passive experience. Folks like my mom and my dad, they're not going to get into a VR headset and jump into a game. I do feel like VR gaming is probably one of the most immersive things you can do with the technology. But I do feel like there's opportunity for something a little bit more relaxed. Something where we can still take that immersion, but remove the intensity and the anxiety from it. At least triggering your, fight or flight, while a horde of zombies is coming at you or something like that. Also, just simply some things I've never tackled. I'm not a musician. I've only dabbled in it, and there's, I'm always trying to teach myself music, but I've never composed anything or something like this. But that's always on my mind. I'm always kind of challenging myself on the piano, try to see if I can come up with something.
Out of all the films and art forms out there, what's your favorite? Who inspired you?
So, my favorite art form is still film. TV shows are great and all, but I'm a movie person. I really, really love movies.
Same here.
Yeah. And one of the biggest influencers in my life was my dad. So my dad is a huge Star Wars fan. If you ever meet my dad, the big takeaway you're going to take from my father is Star Wars. And my dad started building, his own Star Wars costumes. You see them now; they're called the 501st. My dad was building within the mid '90s. He made his first really, really screen accurate Boba Fett costume around maybe 95, 96 or so. And then was actually one of the founding members of the San Joaquin 501st chapter as, the internet came about and everyone started, finding each other online. And you look at some of the suits my dad's made and the attention to detail and the building prowess required to make that stuff, it's phenomenal. And as I grew older, I began to realize that a lot of what makes my dad tick and my grandfather tick is in me. We have the same brain, essentially, right? We have the same troubleshooting, methodical nature, the same tinkering. And then, to have fun, just on the side, working in his garage, as he does still to this day, my dad just started working and tinkering with toys, with costumes. Growing up as a kid, my dad would literally make me toys. It was like having Santa Claus for a dad. I remember one year my brother and I, for Halloween, we wanted to dress up as Mortal Kombat characters, and at that time there were no Mortal Kombat costumes. So my dad made a Mortal Kombat costume. I was Scorpion, my brother was Reptile. He made them whole cloth. He would make me little dinosaurs out of wood. And as we got older, again, we started building costumes. So the very first one we tackled was Boba Fett, his favorite character. And that was awesome because we made Boba Fett together. So my dad and I, in the garage, did things, again, the hard way. We did things the analog way, the hard, we did everything basically by hand. Everyone nowadays uses 3D printers, all that stuff. But this very first project we did, we made the armor metal plates out of metal. I believe we used tin and whatnot, but basically metal with tin snips. We literally just cut it out, pounded it, and I remember my dad making a certain, the pauldron, he'd make the chest piece, didn't work right, threw it away. The other good thing about a Boba Fett is that the more you mess up, the better it is, because it just looks more battle damage. So have nuts, make your Boba Fett, and if it breaks, that was when he got in a fight, don't worry about it. Yeah, there was, what was awesome about that suit too was it was all about finding things. Again, we didn't do things with 3D printers or anything like that. So for essentially what that summer we were on the hunt for were certain geometries. So doing things that way, doing things kind of the classic way of finding these geometries, finding these shapes that look cool. Up until this day, like now with my son, I build things with him. I build toys with my son, and yeah, like little plastic bits, things that are left over from shipping containers at work, or little pieces of plastic that come in your boxes for your toys and whatnot. All of these things, you look at it and you think, what could that become? You know, it's a good exercise in creativity. So yeah. My dad got started with that Boba Fett suit. Then he met with other builders and creators, and now they vacuum form all of these armor pieces. And the vacuum forming process, they would usually, you know, mold it out of clay. Some folks build it out of wood. A lot of folks build it out of foam. And then nowadays, people will use 3D printers to make several of the parts as well, which is really cool and is also a very methodical and rewarding art process in and of itself. But there is something kind of special, I think, about like hunting after, you know, just taking scraps, taking lost items, taking things that people would just throw in the bin and then repurposing them and making suits, making blasters, all that jazz. So yeah, it's pretty fun. So 2020 had a lot of time to ourselves. So as a builder, as a creator, like I spent a lot of time with my son making toys and stuff for him. So one of the first projects, he always was trying to he tried to make his toys ride on a dinosaur, and some toys would just fall off. So I made him a little dino cart out of wood. So just made like a little wooden cart, and then I molded some like bones and teeth on it and put a little glass reptile eyeball on it. And then a cool little trick, I used like paper towels soaked in glue to drape it over and paint that out to make it look like leather. And so yeah, it looks like a little dino cart is what I keep calling it. And then you can strap that on to any of his big dinosaurs, and then he can fit a little 16-inch figure inside and make it look like he's riding the dino. And then two other cool things we were making with my son. Of course, my dad buys my son every Star Wars toy imaginable, and also makes and creates Star Wars blasters for my son. So he's starting to build this giant arsenal, and I needed somewhere to store all this. So my son loves The Mandalorian, and he has lots and lots of Star Wars guns.
So you've got a lot of stuff to start another Clone War.
yeah, exactly. And I'm like, this kid needs an armory. So we were watching Mando again, season 1, and I realized that my son would probably respond to having his own little armory. So in his room, I created this big mount where it looks like a big old gun rack, you know, and armor plates. So the idea being is that, you know, this is his own Mandalorian armor set. It has a little code button where my son could push on it that lights up, so he could pretend like he needs to access his guns and his weaponry. So yeah, that was really fun to make with them.
If you could work with anybody on any project, who and what would that be?
That's a great question. You know who I would love to work with? I would want to work with Glenn Keane. He is an art director and character designer for Disney. Look up some of his talks. He's very inspirational. I got to actually hear him speak once in LA. He did like a big public thing. So I got to sit down and listen to him, and that was very inspirational to hear. And I learned a lot from that talk, and a lot of the things. I feel like if I could just work with them on anything, doesn't even matter what it is, it would probably teach me I would learn as much as I learned in the last 10 years in a week working with that guy. I also feel like if I could already take away and learn so much from him based off of one talk, being there actually and having him critique and analyze and give me feedback on something that I was laying my hands on would then just be phenomenal. So yeah, if I could work with anybody, I'd say I'd work with Glenn Keane on whatever it is I got, even if it's installing, some plumbing, he'd probably teach me. When I look at my son, I'm already trying to picture and imagine him as a young man. While I was in LA, I also used to volunteer my time with the Boys and Girls Club, and I used to work with like 7th and 8th graders. And those guys, there's something about, like, especially at that age range. I know a lot of folks, when they see teenagers, they're like, "Oh God, teens!" Blah. And I'm like, they're we shouldn't give up on them. That's the time to strike. They're becoming their selves. And so I think about my son. He's only 3, and I'm already. I try to imagine what he's going to be like at that age, because once you hit about like 13 years old and whatnot, he's essentially a man. He's essentially the identity that he's going to be. A lot of that has already been built, and of course he's going to learn and grow from there. But when I reflect back on the 13-year-old that I was, like, a lot of the habits, a lot of the things that I was already doing, I'm still doing, and I'm just doing it with more experience and better now. And so if I can help him become a more developed, healthier, more well-rounded individual earlier, like, how much more is that going to help him create and grow and become? I sincerely hope that, like, my son can take a lot of this creativity from his grandpa and from me, because it's not just about drawing or what we consider the classic arts. Like, I consider a well-made spreadsheet a work of art. And so I think to think creatively, you can do that no matter what you're doing, and no matter what endeavor you find yourself into, whether or not you're a bracero working in the fields, or whether or not you're a mechanic, or whatever it is that you happen to be doing. You can become a tangential thinker. You can become a creative person and problem solve and create. You can create using anything in the world. You can create your identity. You yourself are a creation. So yeah, I hope one day, that's kind of what I'm focused on with my kid, and I tend to talk with him like he's a little adult, just to challenge him, because he can think, he makes jokes already at 3 years old. He's already on his way to becoming a little human. So how can I give him the tools to become a healthier, more creative, more productive individual? So yeah, I don't even know if that answered the question. But, yeah.
That's what I like about this, is I ask one question, and I not only get answers, but I get great stories and great perspectives like the one you just gave. So that leads me to my next question. You seem to be very versed in the ways of the teenager, kind of my Star Wars-y question, if you will. Have you ever worked with teenagers and done that? Because it sounds like you'd be really good at that.
Yeah, so in a couple of avenues. So in LA, I volunteered time with the Boys and Girls Club, which at first was not altogether altruistic. My good friend in school let me know that when you volunteer time with the Boys and Girls Club, sometimes you get to go see movies for free. So as a big field trip, you take the kids to go to the theater. So again, I'm a big movie guy. When you're working in that industry, and when I was studying down there, everything was about movies. So the more films you could go see, the better. So, free movies, free theater, heck yeah, let me go volunteer my time. But it started out like that. That was what initially drew me towards it. But then working with the kids, working with the teens is just really rewarding. That in and of itself was worth it. And then when I first moved back into Bakersfield, same thing. I was working with the Boys and Girls Club here in town, and I was working at Compton Junior High. And there were some really cool kids that I met there. Really good young adults is really what they are. And yeah, it's kind of cool actually. I've had a couple of those students come back to me years later. They've come find me. We've run into each other over the years, and they all still remember me. They also call me Mr. G. And it's rewarding. It's really rewarding to see, again, the lives that you've touched and you've tried to influence, and you try to inspire them to just dream, just to keep doing. Nobody knows what we're doing here. Nobody knows what they want to be when they grow up. It's what I learned in LA. Always be working. Just always be working on something. Always be working on you. Always be creating, crafting, doing something that feels rewarding. So that way you can then turn it around and become a more well-rounded individual, Something I learned early on when I was again, a teenager myself. I got into a little bit of trouble, but it resulted in some good things. And one of my biggest takeaway from that was you have to do something brave every year. That's what I told myself when I was 14 years old or so, going into high school. What I had learned from that experience was challenging yourself, defending yourself. It's good for you. It changed me, and it made me more relaxed, because all of a sudden, part of when I was a 8th grader, I had this big old identity crisis, right? I think we all do. You're like, who am I? I'm not a kid anymore, so who am I? And I was like filled with anxiety and depression and all that stuff. But by defending myself, by challenging myself, by doing something brave every year, I became more and more confident, because it challenged my identity. It made me make a decision. And in making those decisions, it solidified who I was. So the concept of the identity crisis just kind of get less and less. So do something brave. And it doesn't have to be a big grand gesture. Maybe it's talking to your dad. Maybe it's talking out a conflict with someone. Maybe it's something that you feel uncomfortable doing, right? You're like, I don't want to do it. But just do it. Do it. In that thought process, because at first the mantra was do something brave every year, but then that slowly became just do something brave, because you don't want to do it, but do it anyways. That's actually how I met my wife. To make a very long story short, I had two paths to take. I normally would go this way, and she was going that way, and I was saying, don't worry about it, just just let it go, life goes on, right? And it just kept, and I didn't, it wouldn't let me be, so I said, no, I'm going to do, so even though I didn't have to do it, even though I didn't want to do it, even though, all that jazz, I said, I'm going to do it anyways, and I just talked with the girl who would eventually become my wife, and my big message to her was just don't sell yourself short. It eventually led to a relationship and a marriage and a child. So just do something brave. Do something that you feel it's right. It might be scary. You might not even think it's worthwhile. You might be thinking, if I don't do it, it's not the end of the world. What's it gonna hurt? It could be the beginning of the world.
Hello, David. How are you today?
Good.
Oh, that's good. Do you like Star Wars, David?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah? Do you make Star Wars stuff with your dad?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Do you make Star Wars toys with Papa?
Yeah.
Yeah, Papa, huh? Papa makes all the cool Star Wars stuff.
What's your motto or your saying that you like?
If I had a motto to live by, I feel like I have. Oh, welcome back. I'd say there might be a few mottos that I try and live by. One, I might have mentioned during the last interview, which is do something brave. I kind of feel like that is something that I've been living by ever since I was before high school even. I think I told the story about how I got in trouble in school and had to essentially defend myself. And from that, my big takeaway was to do something brave, because I was scared to have to defend myself. I was scared to tell the truth, and I was scared for a whole number of reasons. But even though I was afraid, I said what needed to be said. I defended myself. I'm going to sound like Mufasa here. Being brave doesn't mean, it has to be some big, great, grand gesture either. Following that, probably the biggest result was it repaired the relationship with me and my dad. And I then had a couple of healing conversations with like my stepmother and others, and likewise that was like a very scary conversation, not because I was afraid of my stepmother, but just because kind of digging deep into those emotions, that could get kind of daunting, plus the goal isn't to make myself, it's not to make me right. The goal was to continue repairing these relationships. So you could very easily just say, well, don't worry about it. Let sleeping dogs lie, right? Like, just forget about it. Don't make a big deal of it. Whatever, just stop it. But that's not enough. It wasn't enough to just stay quiet. So even though I don't have to, or even though I may not all want to, and even though it may seem scary to do, find all of those components. If you do decide to do it, that to me equals bravery, right? That is something where if you do at least one thing that's brave every year, you just become a more rounded person. You tend to feel better about yourself. And I think it's all of our goals in life is to, eventually feel okay with yourself, to combat those feelings of depression and anxiety and everything. So kind of showing up to challenges that you see as challenges, maybe others don't, but you perceive them as a challenge. Showing up and deciding, I'm going to do it. That should be good. It'll be good for you, I meant. So yeah, do something brave. Do something brave. And I even would tell my 8th graders and 4th graders when I was working with them, do one brave thing a year is what I would kind of phrase it as. And then the next thing you know, you'll be doing brave things more often, whether or not it's going to school, choosing a career path, making a decision, and which leads me to my other motto, which is why not? In the world, you surround yourself with people who ask you why all the time. You want to do something, why? Why? Why do that? Why do this? Why? Instead, why not? Why not do this? Why not, if you surround yourself with these kind of tangential thinkers, these folks who think, well, why not? Why couldn't we do this? Why couldn't we, build the world's largest rubber band? What would it take? How can we solve this problem? Those are the type of folks you want to be and you want to surround yourself with, or the people who ask, why not? And even for myself, I find myself doing that when met with other individuals who want to create something or make something. And there is still, even within myself, there's a part of me that goes, well, why? Why are we making this decision? Or why are we doing it this way? And I catch myself always and remember that you want to be on the other side. You want to ask, why not? Why not do their project as they see it? Why not their vision? So why not? Why not? So yeah, probably the other motto I live by.
So why not and be brave?
Yeah, do one brave thing a year. Be brave, yeah, something like that.
Thank you, Mark. And thank you for coming back a second time.
Yeah.
Last time we just kind of quit talking. So just to end this properly, thank you again for doing this, and thank you for having David along this time.
Yeah.
It was great to meet David.
Yeah.
And he's a really good kid. So say goodbye, David.
Goodbye.
Bye.